Hello everyone, myself I am Saranya, working as an assistant professor in MLR Institute of Technology in the department of AIML. So today we are going to see with the topics of Kerberos and X.509 Authentication Service Certificates. So let us come to the first slide of overview. So what is meant by Kerberos and what are those working functions and applications of Kerberos? So Authentication Service Certificate, which is given by the version of X.509, and what are those working process, and it also format of the Authentication Service Certificate. Let us discuss what is meant by Kerberos. So basically this Kerberos will give and provides an centralized authentication server. The whole function is to authenticate users to the servers, and these servers are going to move to the users. It is an authentication server who it will be authentication users to servers and servers to the users. So basically it is the between server and the user. So authentication server and also the database should be used for only client authentication process in the Kerberos. And this Kerberos will run as an third-party trusted server that is known as Key Distribution Center. In the Kerberos, it is a third-party trusted server that is called as an KDC. KDC is nothing but an Key Distribution Center. So what will happen in this Key Distribution Center? There will be an each user and the service on the network. That is a principal. It is one type of principal between the user and the service on the network. So the Kerberos is mainly functions to the authentication users to servers and the servers to the user, and it also runs to the third parties that is known as an KDC, Key Distribution Center, and it also between user and the service on the network. That is the whole concept of the principle of Kerberos. Let us see what the main components of Kerberos: authentication server, database, and TGS. TGS is nothing but an ticket granting server. So in this authentication server, it is basically performs an initial authentication process for the ticket granting service. So we can see next of the ticket granting server. First of all, we are going to see with the authentication server. So authentication server basically it performs with the initial authentication and the ticket for the ticket granting service. Means authentication will occur or it takes the responsibility in the authentication server. Then after that completion of the authentication, it is going to raise an ticket granting. That is nothing but it issues the ticket for the server, means for the acceptance. The next one is database. Then what will do the database if the authentication enters into the system? So it verifies the access rights of the user in the database. So after the completion of the whole authentication server process, it will issue an ticket. After that issuing, it verifies the access right of the particular user in the database. That is the main components of the Kerberos. There are authentication server and databases and TGS, ticket granting server. The next, what should be working of the Kerberos? What will happen? See. So there are two steps, step 1 and step 2 of the working of the Kerberos. So first, basically by seeing this figure, we can understand what will happen of the working of the Kerberos. So the user should be login and request services on the host. First, the user is already connected to the authentication server. With the help of the authentication server, it is going to tell the information again to the user, and it also going to the ticket granting services and also the databases. These are the main components of the Kerberos. After that, what will happen between the user and the server? So the user first need to log in and the request services on the host. So thus user request is for the ticket granting services. After this completion of whole of the process of authentication server, it verifies users access rights using the any of the databases. After the confirmation of having the databases, it is whether it is correct means, then it gives the ticket granting ticket and the session key also. So to open the key, they also provide one session key. So therefore, their results are mostly encrypted. Means already the authentication user or any of the user should be kept one of any of the password. So after that encrypting, they are going to use about the password of the user to open the lock. That will happen to the user and the server. This is the working process of the Kerberos. First, the user should access to the whole process of the three types, that is nothing but authentication server, TGS, and also the databases. That is the main Kerberos part. So after that, it should be taken to the user to TGS, then taking the confirmation from TGS to the user, it should be moved to the server. Then later, server should give the acceptance to the user to forward your providence. Means you can log in into the system. Then what should be the third step? The decryption also message is also done by using the password which is sent to the ticket granting server. So already we have discussed in this previous slide. First it goes to the authentication server, then authentication server should automatically comes to the user part, then user should automatically comes to the TGS off, then taking the acceptance, it should be moved to the server. After the taking the confirmation of the server, they generate access to the service. After that, user can access the whole services. That is the working of the Kerberos. Those are steps are these steps. The all steps is nothing but an working of this figure. The next applications of the Kerberos. There are 5 types of applications. First one is user authentication. The next one is SSO. It is nothing but an single sign-on process. The next one is mutual authentication process. The next one is authorization, and the next one is network security. So what is the main of applications of this Kerberos? Let us see. First off, user authentication. So basically, when the user authentication means, it basically have to input their any of the username and the passwords to gain access to the network. So while we are going to gain any of the access to the network, we need the username and the password to log in the system. That is the basic of user authentication. The next one is single sign-on process. This single sign-on process is basically that enables users to log in once to access a variety of network resources. Means they are having only one chance of to log in. That is called as a single sign-on. That is the named as single sign-on process. The next one is mutual authentication. The mutual authentication is if any data is transferred, it should use as a mutual authentication technique. Means the works between client and the server. Here the authenticated people are the client and the server. That is called as an mutual authentication. The next one is authorization. We know what is meant by the authorization. So user only can access the particular resources, and after the permissions, it can only contains of the service tickets. Means we are Kerberos, we are talking about the only TGS, that is a ticket granting server. So that only server should combines to contain, and it also maintain the one type of services tickets. So authorization is main nothing point is user can access any type of the resources. The next one is network security. So in this network security, the user should have an credentials to access particular restrictions. So to ensure the network security process. Means it basically it also related to the authentication server. Authentication server, it should be a very user credential process. So to maintain network security purpose. That are the applications of the Kerberos. There are 5 types of applications. First one is user authentication, single sign-on, mutual authentication, authorization, and network security. The next one is X.509 Authentication Service. So what is this X.509 Authentication Service? It is basically comes from the widely trusted standard known as ITU. It is nothing but an International Telecommunication Union of the version X.509, that it was named as Authentication Service of X.509 as a authentication service. So it is basically a certified based authentication process for the main security purposes. So they are providing secure transaction processing and any of the private information. So this whole digital certificate is mainly based upon to providing the secure transaction processing and also the private information process. Then it is primarily used for the handling the security process and also the inter-based communications. So to identify in computer networking, it is used mainly for the handling the security purposes. That is meant by authentication services of the version X.509 certification. So then how it is, what will be the working process of the X.509 authentication purposes? So basically it provides an public key certificate. So it should be connected to each user. So whoever is going to log in the particular authentication service, it should be connected to each and every user. So the user certificates are mostly assumed to produce some of the trust, means it is nothing but in the directory by any of the user or the certified authority. So already we have seen in the digital signature standards, that is an CA, that is certificate authority. So same in the working of X.509 authentication service also, should be positioned in the directory by the user or any of the certified authority. Then these directory services not only for the providing an effortless reachable locations for all the users, they can acquire certificates. So after these certificates, it is built on the ideal known as ASN. ASN is nothing but an abstract syntax notation. So with this help of the abstract syntax notation, the certificate must use both public and the private key for encrypting and decrypting the messages. So the main target of the ASN is nothing but an abstract syntax notation is mainly used for the formation of users between public and the private key. The public and private key is mostly used for the encrypting and the decrypting a message. That was the main important role of ASN. Let us see one example of this figure having an unsigned certificates and having the signed certificates. So what will happen inside of this figure? So let us take an example of unsigned process is going to hashed with the particular unsigned certificate. Then after this, there will be one secret key, that is nothing but a private key. After this privation of key, it should encrypt the hash code by using the CA process. After the CA process, it is again going to the process and it's come back to the original position of the input, that is nothing but an public key. So sender, whatever the sending the information, the receiver will verify whether he has sent exact information or not. Any mismatches will occur, then it should not be valid. Once the certificate is provided to a user by the certificate authority, so that authority means that certificate should be attached to like an identity card. So whatever, for example, if we are entering in our college, so we need an access to the ID cards and also the thumbs. Like that, for the certification process, we also need one identity card. After that pass percentage of this certificate, we get an identity card. Like that, here also with the same of the abstract syntax notation for encrypting and decrypting, it will get an certified authority process to the user, that like an identity card. For sometimes they also someone stealing or it losing, unlike other unsecured passwords. With the unsecured passwords only, we can lose our data. Then for the format of the authentication service also, there are number of formats what will follow the service certificates. Let us see here. Should be an version numbers, means any of the versions like X.509 or Z.30 2. Like that, there should be some of the version numbers and also the serial numbers, which is combined to the whatever here happened to the version numbers. There will be some of the serial numbers. Signature algorithm ID means whatever we are keeping the signatures, it should be provided an one identity card. Then after that completion, it will create and raises and one issuer name, and it gives an validity period, and it gives for the name, and it gives to the subject public key also. Then after that, and it ensures one of the unique identifier. For this identifier, there will give to the subject also. For this all creations, it should be an extension also. Then later, the signature is done by an user. That is the format of the whole X.509 authentication service process. For this process, it should be contain some hash algorithm. This hash algorithm is going to be digest. Then after, whether his signature is valid or not, it's going to check by using the signature algorithm with the certified authority private key. So already we have discussed with the previous slide whether the certificate authority only will see, and it mainly encrypts the hash function. That what here say signature algorithm must be signed with the certificate authority with the private key. So the hash algorithm ID plus cipher ID plus some of the parameters. These are the format of X.509 authentication service certificate. So in today's session, we have discussed with the Kerberos X.509 authentication service certificate and what are their uses with the help of the diagrams. So in the next session, we will discuss about the public key infrastructure process. Thank you.